Bale just tore into Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and exposed him in the most devastating way yet. Not with theatrics, but with simple questions Hegseth couldn't answer. From intelligence disclosures to budget priorities, Bale made one thing painfully clear. Hegseth talks like a warrior, but leads like a man terrified of accountability. And the moment Bale confronted him on the warrior ethos Hegseth brags about, everything fell apart, because the man preaching discipline couldn't even show basic honesty. This wasn't a partisan attack. It was a reality check delivered by someone who's actually stood in war zones and understands leadership.
I recognize as a gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Bell.
Mr. Secretary, unlike my colleague down the dais, I don't feel sorry for you. I visited with soldiers in war zones whose life is on the line, so a few tough questions. I think you'll be okay. And so my first question is, are you authorized to disclose intelligence that would put our troops in harm's way to our enemies?
Well, I reject the premise of the
just saying,
question.
Just as a hypothetical, are you authorized to do that?
I have not and do not.
Exactly, and I assume that. So when you told our ranking member that everything that you say is authorized, that wasn't completely accurate, correct?
What I said is that every way that I communicate is authorized.
No, you actually said everything that you said is authorized. I wrote it down. Now, with that said, and the reason I bring that up is because it's about accountability. And we're talking about this war ethos. The primary component of that is accountability. And I'm going to indulge me in a quick analogy. Republicans introduced a bill on the House floor a few days ago, a resolution standing against terror, racism, hate, anti-Semitism, which as an American, as a black man, I'm going to stand against those things 6 times a week, twice on Sunday. Now, the nefarious part was there was a line that was stuck at the end of that resolution that essentially gave a shout out to law enforcement, which I do support, but also to ICE, which right now, a lot of Americans have a problem with the way ICE is being deployed. And I'm not happy with what they're doing, nor do I want to shout them out for that. And so accountability was, I didn't duck from the question. I went and I talked to my constituents. I went on social media. I did interviews to explain exactly where I stood, that I stand against hate. I stand against racism. I stand against anti-Semitism. And I hate that that line was stuck in there. That's accountability. So when we're asking you these questions and you're ducking and you're not answering them directly, that's not a culture of a war. What was the term? A war ethos, a warrior ethos. I'm looking at members who serve, and they're taking their lead from you. That starts with you. And if we have troops who are in war zones and they're watching while they're risking their lives, and you can't just answer some tough questions, what kind of culture is that setting? So, as a prosecutor, when I think about what's happening in California and around the country with ICE, it's not only dangerous and unconstitutional, but it raises serious public safety concerns because we have people with masks that are going around saying that they're ICE, and we've had reports of that, saying that they're ICE and committing crimes. And that's a big problem. But it gets me back to the point of the accountability piece. So, for example, do you believe quality military housing is important? Yes or no? And just keep your mic on for time because I don't only have a minute left.
Our budget commits to robust military housing and barracks.
Do you believe military children deserve a strong education?
Our budget funds strong education, and we hope more educational choices for military.
Love it. Is it a priority to provide real, reliable care to our veterans?
Of course.
So, Mr. Secretary, we have a problem here because your answers don't match your budget priorities. You said your mission is to restore this warrior ethos and that threats we face are serious, but so must our investments. So when we think of, for example, a $45 million parade, I can think of 45 million things we could do more effectively with $45 million than a parade, such as the things that I mentioned: military housing, military children's education, providing reliable care for our veterans. All of these things would be higher on the priority than a parade. And so the parade, and when we talk about showing strength, we're not talking about theater. We're not talking about showmanship. We're talking about things that actually make our military more lethal and keeps us safer. And so what I'm saying is that in my limited time left is accountability does matter, and this body cares about what our military is doing, because we care about national security, and we all take it very seriously.
Gentleman's time has expired.
What you just watched was not a policy discussion. It was Congressman Ball peeling back the thin layer of performance that Pete Hegseth has been hiding behind since the moment he took the job. Ball didn't arrive with insults, theatrics, or cheap shots. He arrived with something far more devastating for a Secretary of Defense who built his brand on bravado: accountability. From the moment Ball asked his first question, a simple, foundational inquiry about whether Hegseth is authorized to disclose intelligence that could endanger American troops, and everything unraveled. Because Hegseth couldn't even answer a hypothetical without stumbling over his own contradictions. He had just told the committee that everything I say is authorized, and suddenly, under even the slightest pressure, he had to walk that back. Ball wasn't trying to trap him. He was showing the country that the man tasked with overseeing the lives of U.S. service members doesn't understand the weight of his own words. And when Ball shifted to the heart of the issue, accountability as the core of the warrior ethos Hegseth claims to champion, the entire illusion collapsed. Ball offered his own example, standing before his constituents, explaining his vote, taking responsibility, being clear, honest, and transparent. That is what leadership looks like. But when Hegseth was asked to do the same, when he was asked to defend his budget, defend his choices, defend his rhetoric, he ducked, dodged, filibustered, and refused to face the consequences of his own decisions. Ball wasn't just calling out hypocrisy, he was revealing a crisis of leadership. Because when troops deployed in war zones watch the Secretary of Defense refuse to answer the simplest questions, what message does that send about courage, clarity, or responsibility? When families of service members see him hide behind slogans while avoiding direct accountability, what does that say about the values at the top of the chain of command? Ball laid out the contradiction perfectly. Hegseth claims to champion warrior ethos, yet his budget prioritizes parades over military housing, political theater over children's education, and messaging over veteran care. He speaks about strength as if it's a performance, not a responsibility. He treats oversight like an inconvenience, not a duty. And Ball drove home the point that truly shook the room. Leadership is not about showmanship. It's not about speeches. It's not about press conferences or viral clips. It's about the decisions that make troops safer, more capable, more protected. And on every measurable front, from housing to education to veteran care, Hegseth's priorities contradict the very ethos he claims to restore. Ball's final message was the most devastating. Accountability is not optional. It is the core of national security. If the Secretary of Defense cannot answer tough questions in a hearing room, how can he lead a military asked to face life or death pressure every single day? How can he demand integrity from the rank and file when he refuses to practice it himself? And that is why this exchange mattered. Because beneath the calm tone and steady questions, Ball exposed what so many in Washington have whispered for months. Pete Hegseth talks like a warrior, but leads like a performer. And when the stakes are the lives of American service members, that isn't just embarrassing, it's dangerous.